Welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our batteries are up to date and our energy is high this morning. It is a gorgeous, beautiful morning. So I'm so delighted that you're here in the sanctuary, and a special welcome to those of you joining us on Zoom and later on. And later on, those who join us by YouTube. So we want to let you know why we are here. We are here to serve our mission, which is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. And we put that simply to love, grow, and serve. So I'm Reverend Pat Dre, and it is my joy to be with you this morning. And it's a special joy when I share one of the principles that you found out what I did to get here. So we want to begin now with a heartfelt statement of our oneness. So join with me in saying, there is one presence and one power in my life, in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. Let me share with you the daily word today that comes from Unity Worldwide. The title is Freedom. And do start by just taking a deep breath and letting it go. Freedom. And don't we know freedom in our own breathing? Taking responsibility for my life leads me to freedom. Each life has its shares of ups and downs. And like most people, I have felt blessed by my happy experiences and also laid low by more difficult ones. I have used the spiritual tools of forgiveness and gratitude to learn from and move beyond my more painful experiences. This kind of spiritual housekeeping is my key to lasting freedom. By releasing blame and regret over and over again, if necessary, I am ensuring that I will not be bound by the past and limited by an outward image of myself. Life is dynamic, and so am I. My growth is dependent upon my forward movement, and I commit to embracing the freedom that comes from leaving the past behind. With gratitude, I bless the person I was. With faith, I reach unencumbered for the person I am becoming. And this is our daily word that comes from Unity. It is a beautiful resource. It's copyrighted and trademarked, and we honor the gift it is in our lives. So I do want to mention one of the principles of unity. I like being able to share stories about other people, and every once in a while I have one about myself. So this weekend I went to a beloved nephew's wedding up in the DC area. And as luck would have it, I did the drive alone. And I don't mind driving alone. In fact, I really like driving alone. So I'm enjoying the drive in the beautiful spring and enjoying that most of the drivers are in the same place as I am, enjoying being on the road and being courteous to one another. And of course, it's a long drive from South Carolina, and it's 8 hours each way. And so I drive the 8 hours, getting there relatively late at night to my hotel. And then in the morning, one of the most beautiful but unusual weddings I've ever seen or been to or participated in. Everything had a lovely, unique twist or personal touch, depending on how you would regard it. You see, my nephew is an architect, and his now wife worked in the architectural firm and got his attention by flipping little paper clips at him. Sounds very third grade to me, but she is quite a mature and lovely woman. And so there were many stories that were shared during this lovely wedding with a unique view into a beautiful love and beautiful families and a love story. And so then right after that morning service and reception, I got back in my car and drove for 8 hours. And what am I thinking? I'm thinking, my goodness, isn't love creative? It shows up in all different ways. And aren't people who want to connect with other people unique in how they do it? And then there are all these fun stories about how they express their growing affection for each other. That creativity comes from within. And that creativity comes from God. And how we express it is our ability to express love that comes from the one, the source. And so 8 hours of driving is nothing when you have beautiful things to contemplate. So I am delighted to be here. We're so pleased to have you here in the sanctuary. We have a couple of new people. We have Jim and George joining us for the first time. Let's give them a round of applause. And forgive me, tell me your names, Carolyn and Taylor, and you've been here before. Yes, and welcome to Carolyn and Taylor as well. We have a number of things that are going on here at Unity right now. And even though it's summer or almost summer in the Carolinas, it's always summer, but we like you to know what's going on so you can join in these opportunities. The book club discusses a return to love today on Zoom at 11:30 a.m. via Zoom. The links are at our website. Affirmative prayer meets Tuesday evenings. It is a wonderful time for centering, for meditation, and to know the health of our planet and the health and prosperity in our own lives and in our own community. So do yourself a favor and join us on this Zoom meeting at 7:15 on Tuesdays. And we have a book group that meets on Wednesdays from 1 o'clock to 2:30. And the reason I hesitate about its title is it has morphed several times. It is truly a creative experience in expression, always evolving. And our current book is Creative Thinking, and it is a magnificent book. And it reflects so many teachings that we hold dear in Unity by a very gifted author, Lucille Cederkranz. So do yourself a favor and consider joining that book club, we call it the Path of Initiation because of books we've had in the past, but it is a path that is ongoing. Consider joining that. Course in Miracles meets on Thursdays at 9:30 on Zoom. And we want you to also know that our beloved Reverend Robin Volker, teaches ongoing classes. They're roughly 8 weeks long. The current one is self-awareness, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to be part of that group. And it lives up to every idea that I have had about awakening and growing my self-awareness. Do stay tuned for Reverend Robin Volker's classes. When they start, there'll be another one in the fall. They are a gift to all of us. And now we will say an affirmation related to our drawing our new minister. We're going to be changing this particular affirmation to include the new minister that we're drawing in a little more of a clear essence. We first did that affirmation then for our new home, since we're renting this space currently. So just know, we'll wait for the updated version, but join with me in saying this affirmation. We affirm the presence of a new minister and spiritual home for Unity of Charlotte that fulfills every need for space and use in order to support and share our unified purpose to love, grow, and serve. And so it is. We're looking forward to starting our new, our renewed children's program sometime very soon. We'd like you to know that our teachers are ready to do the children's program, which was very popular in the past, in the pre-COVID days. So keep that in your awareness and know that you can bring your children, your grandchildren. I'm not there yet, but who knows, great-grandchildren. So if anyone you know is in need of prayer, please place your prayer request at our website. It is our joy and honor to pray for your request, whether it's a particular need that you have, a concern, a worry. That's what our prayer is for, and also for the manifestations you are currently drawing into your life. We will add new energy to that. So place your prayer requests at our website. And you can also place your prayer request at the Unity Telephone Prayer Ministry, Unity. Just dial 800 now pray for a personal affirmative prayer. I'd like to mention that we are a mask optional at this point in time, but we do recognize that there are some people who are more comfortable in masks and others who are don't feel a great need for that right now. If you are one of those who prefers to be masked, please do be masked and set yourself appropriately. We don't mind if you move the chairs around so that you are comfortable. Your comfort, your safety, and your being with us in joy and in comfort is what we are about. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Reverend Robin Volker. I'm still a little bit dry from the 8-hour drive, even though I got a good night's sleep last night. Reverend Robin Volker is such a treasure to us, and she is a regular contributor to Unity of Charlotte. And today she brings a spring message to us about celebrating spring in our own spiritual journey. And so would you please give a very warm welcome to Reverend Robin Volker via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Pat, and thank all of you at Unity of Charlotte for inviting me into your congregation and your Zoom space. Once again, I'm delighted to be here. And yes, it is springtime, or it's feeling like summertime here in Georgia this weekend. Oh, and Rick and I have been digging in the dirt. Do you guys dig in the dirt? Just raise your hand if you do. And those who are joining us on Zoom, feel free to chat with each other and send me notes. I won't read those until after I'm finished talking, but at least I will get the opportunity to read them afterwards. So thank you for joining us by all of our means. Oh, so I want to talk about planting and growing a spiritual garden. I do garden, Rick and I garden, and not necessarily vegetables, although sometimes we do. This year we're not, but we have quite a bit of acreage and we do a lot of plant stuff. And I am a member of the University of Georgia Master Gardener Group here in my county. So it's very much in the forefront of my mind this time of year, gardening, and I want to talk about that as an analogy for our spiritual journey. So let me set the stage for you. Rick and I have a very large planting bed at the base of the hill where our house sits. Now this bed runs 120 feet long and about 30 feet wide, and it sits at about a 20-degree grade. You got that? It's a pretty big space. And when we moved here, that space was already developed into a bed, but it was only mulch. So what do you think happened every year, every spring? Weeds sprung up in all of that mulch, and it was just a tremendous effort to keep them sprayed out. That was there was such a large space that spraying was really the only option, and then more mulch, and we were tired after the first couple of years. So we decided to develop that into a bed. And I did research and created a design for low growing ground cover. And we've ended up with over a bunch of stuff, 50, 60 plants. We have trees and shrubs and grasses and bulbs and flowers and all kinds of things now in this area. And what I have come to realize is that having a beautiful garden you have to have a plan, and you have to have intention, and it takes work, right? Those of you who dig in the dirt, you know that. Well, the same is true for your spiritual life. It needs to have a plan and intention, and it takes work. Developing your spiritual garden, your spiritual life, it doesn't just happen without any effort. Cultivating a beautiful spiritual life is like cultivating a beautiful garden. Now, Jesus taught this message over 2,000 years ago, and he taught in parables, which are short, fictitious narratives that's based on real life happenings. And Jesus had come to this concept of a relationship with God through his inner practice. And this was very different from the Torah law of the Jews at that time, and even to this day. And he was trying to communicate this new awareness of God to the common people that he was talking to. And he chose parables to try to help them to understand what he had become aware of. And he talks about this idea of gardening in Matthew 13. It goes like this. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and he sat beside the sea, and great crowds gathered around him. So he got in a boat and he sat there while the whole crowd stood on the beach. He created his own amphitheater, so to speak, and he was really good about doing that. And then he told them many things in parables, and he began by saying, a sower went out to sow. And that was something that everyone could relate to, because they had to grow their own food, or they had to have some kind of means to be able to trade for the food that someone else had grown. And as he sowed the seeds, some fell on the path, and birds came and devoured them. And other seeds fell on rocky ground where they had not much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose and they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. And other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. And other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. And then our master gardener said, he who has ears, let them hear. So what was Jesus trying to teach us here? How do we plant and grow a spiritual garden? So I have 10 steps for you. Those of you who like to take notes, get ready. Here we go. Step 1, you start by preparing the soil. Any gardener knows you've got to have good soil in order to plant. And here's the really good news. You can grow anything, if you have the soil that matches the needs of that particular plant. So soil, in our spiritual analogy, is our consciousness. Now, what is consciousness? That's a big word. And if you're new to New Thought, you're thinking, what is she talking about? That sounds like a foreign language to me. And it really means it's a sense of knowing. It's a sense of awareness. And co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, talked a lot about consciousness. Here's what he said. It is the knowledge or realization of any idea, object, or condition. The knowledge or realization of any idea, object, or condition. He goes on to say, the sum total of all ideas accumulated in and affecting man's present being. The composite of ideas, thoughts, and emotions, sensations, and knowledge that makes up the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious phases of mind. Now, those three phases of mind, that's a whole other talk and whole other lesson. But I like to say that consciousness is all that I know and all that I've forgotten that I know and all that I never even knew that I know. And that's the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind that is indwelling in me. So our consciousness is like the soil in our garden. And the first thing that we want to do if we're going to start a new garden, a new bed, is we want to go to our county extension agent or to a master gardener and get a soil test, right? How do you take a consciousness test? Well, we begin to observe and notice our patterns of thinking. We become our own observer. Now, before the days of handy soil testing, a farmer would go out and observe what was growing in the soil where he wanted to create a garden. And farmers would go and they would dig up a bit of soil, they'd pick it up, they'd run it through their fingers, they would see what it's made out of, its composite, is it real clay or loamy or sandy? And they would look at it and smell it and squeeze it. How much water did it hold? And they probably even tasted it, right? So to examine our consciousness, we must become aware. We must pause and dig down into our thinking a little and examine the thought patterns that we have. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves before we even begin to grow our spiritual garden. We want to be willing to make soil amendments as necessary in order to grow what we desire to grow. And that means we have to be open and receptive. Open and receptive in the beginning to our spiritual opportunity. And the second step is to choose the seeds that we want to plant. Now, in Jesus's day, seeds were very valuable. There was nowhere you could run down to the corner and the corner co-op or Ace Hardware or Walmart or whatever and buy the seeds that you wanted. The seeds had to be kept from year to year, and they had to be treated very specially so that they could be preserved. And they wanted to make sure that they weren't attacked by rodents or bugs or something would happen to them over the course of the winter. And then folks would get together if they had more seed than they needed, and they would swap seeds. And they would even use seeds to buy other things besides seeds. They could use their seeds as currency. Now, metaphysically, seeds represent creative ideas from God. That little seed is bound up energy. And each little seed contains the genetic imprint of the full plant. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? I love to work with nature because it teaches me so much. Inside every acorn is the genetic imprint of an entire oak tree. Inside a watermelon seed is the genetic imprint of that whole watermelon vine that will produce an abundance of watermelon under the right conditions. So every seed is a gift from Creator, and every divine inspirational thought that we have is a gift from Creator. Isn't that great? Isn't it great? And the amazing thing is that the seed itself is powerless to produce anything. The seed in and of itself. But it is the avenue through which the inner manifests to the outer. Isn't that a beautiful idea? And those seed ideas, they don't come from our external human environment. They come through us. They come through us from the divine within us. So we've amended our soil, we've got that ready, and we have chosen our seed, and we have to be able to provide water. All plants and seeds in our garden need water. So what would that be spiritually? Water is inspiration. It's the infilling of the Holy Spirit. And every day, our little seeds need a little drink of water, just like you and I. We need a spiritual drink. And I'm so grateful that you've gathered together in spiritual community physically and in Zoom today to get a little drink of spiritual inspiration. And hopefully that you are doing that through other means as well, through the reading of your daily word and through your Course in Miracles, and maybe you're a Bible student. But whatever fills you up and can take the focus off of the outer conditions and help you find that inner inspiration, that is the water in your life. And then we have sunshine, right? So what would sunshine represent in our spiritual garden? In Genesis chapter 1, verse 16, it says that the sun is the greater light to rule the day. Sunlight is the realm of greater consciousness that illuminates our lives. So when we have taken that long drink of inspiration and we look to greater consciousness, greater awareness, when we want to grow a better life, we have to go to another level than the life that we've known. We've got to be willing to look to a greater view, a greater awareness. And that is what the sunlight represents, is that we're open to that greater awareness of higher thinking. As long as Rick and I looked at that bed and all it had was mulch in it, if we hadn't looked to a greater idea, a greater awareness, a greater consciousness, we couldn't have come up with the ideas to do what we did there. Without sunlight, we would remain small in word and thought and deed. We'd be stymied and dwarf-like. It would be like living in a dark forest. We would still have life, but would that life be what it could be if it was out in the sunlight? And we need to fertilize our gardens. Now, I'm not talking about that fake commercial fertilizer. I'm talking about organic, down-to-earth, earth-supporting, life-sustaining fertilizer. Good organic fertilizer is made from compost, and compost is the broken down components of daily refuse. Now, for my physical garden, the best kind of compost comes from worm poop, alpaca poop, chicken poop. That poopy stuff, oh, that makes great fertilizer for my garden. So what are the fertilizers for your spiritual garden? This is the breaking down of life events into forgiveness and love, grinding down those usable bits of our everyday life and not just allowing them to become rotten and stinky, but actually working them. So if there's an upset in your life, going within to prayer and meditation and breaking it down. Where is the lesson in me for this? How could I have handled that differently? What is the higher road for me to take? What do I need to forgive? Who do I need to forgive? What is being shown to me here? That's how you compost and make your organic fertilizer for your spiritual garden. Now, Rick and I travel quite a bit from spring to fall. And if it rains a lot while we're gone, even though we now have a beautifully developed bed with lots of plant material in it, it doesn't require that much mulch, and we can get it ready in just a few days every spring by pulling out the weeds that come up. But if it rains a lot while we're gone, new weeds are there when we come back, right? And in the beginning, when we first started that bed, we were gone for a couple of weeks that second spring, and oh my gosh, the weeds were bigger than the plants we had planted. Now, what did we do about that? We put on our gloves and we went out there and we stood like billy goats on that hill, and we pulled every one of those weeds by hand, because we didn't want to disturb our plants. We didn't want to disturb our mulch. We had to go in and work it and get those weeds out of there. Now, we try really hard to not allow that to get away from us. And because our plants are established and bigger, it's not as hard as it was in the first year. Now, those weed thoughts represent the thoughts we do not want. Those are the error thoughts. And they are the thoughts that are driven by our personality, by our ego, by the mass consciousness of the human race. And they produce a lot of weed seeds, right? You know, every time that you tune in to all the bad news that's happening in the world, that's just like taking a dry dandelion with all of those fuzzy little seeds and going, and spreading those hundreds of seeds all over your lawn, all over your flower bed. And weed seeds are very prolific. They don't need any attention whatsoever. So all you have to do is just not look for a minute, and you've got new weeds growing. And they will absorb the nutrients in your soil. They'll steal your sunlight. They'll take your water, your inspiration, and they will choke out those new ideas. And what that leaves you is the same boring landscape of your life. Weeds are easy to grow. They don't need any encouragement. They're cheap ground cover. But is that really what you want to grow in your consciousness? Now, step 7 is prune. What do we want to prune in our spiritual garden? What about bad habits? What about any habit or repetitive action that does not serve you? Everything in your life doesn't need to be pruned, just the parts that are overtaking the goodness in your life. If I have a tomato plant that's going crazy and it's just growing like crazy and sending limbs everywhere, limbs and leaves, even if it has blooms on those far-reaching leaves, I will cut those leaves back. I'll pinch them back so that the energy of the plant goes into making the fruit of the plant instead of just growing this monster leaf canopy. That's not going to provide me with tomatoes when I get ready to eat tomatoes. For my trees and shrubs, I look at them and see, are they growing into the house or growing into other plants? Or they have limbs that are crossing each other on the interior that need to be pruned out? You want to be selective with your pruning. What might you want to prune in your consciousness? Do you have behaviors that overflow into other people's lives? That might need some pruning. Do you have habits that might need to be pruned back because they keep your intentions, your good intentions, from being developed in appropriate ways? And step 8, we want to provide trellises when needed. You know, some seeds like carrots and beets, they grow deep into the earth, but other plants like peppers and beans and tomatoes, they get bushy and heavy, and these plants need support. In your spiritual garden, you can ask for support. Ask by support by sending in your prayer request to Unity of Charlotte or to Silent Unity at 1-800-NOW-PRAY, or use the Unity app on your phone. You, the letter U, you pray. You can contact a minister or a spiritual coach to help you. You can attend the classes during the week to give you a midweek uplift. This is the support that you can get. And it trellises up that which you're trying to grow in your life. Don't let your spiritual work lie on the ground and rot. Get the support you need. You deserve it. And number 9, we get to a place in our growth and development where it's time to harvest and process our fruit and produce. I always love that part. I try not to make my schedule too busy so that I can, make some jelly and pickle a few things. You want to make sure that you have time to harvest and don't miss your harvest. And your plants will not grow if you don't pick your ripe fruit or harvest what is ready to be harvested. It stymies the plant if you leave it on the vine too long or on the plant too long. So what is the harvest in your spiritual garden? It's the good things that you produce with your life, the way you shine your light in the world, the way that you love other people, the way that you allow God to be God in you, through you. That's your harvest. There's nothing sweeter than for someone to share with me that I've touched their life, to tell me that they found inspiration in the wedding that I officiated, or they found relief from their grief in the memorial that I served at, or that they feel uplifted in the classes that they take with me. That's my harvest. And it just buoys me and keeps me going. And you have your own harvest as well. It may be that you are serving as a greeter or in the choir or as a chaplain, or just as a prayer partner, holding your spiritual community in prayer every day for a few minutes. And you know that that work is God moving in and through you. And that's your harvest. And then the last activity in our spiritual garden is to clean up the garden and save the seeds of this harvest for next year. Every cycle of life provides an opportunity for us to clean up our little corner of the world. Birthdays and holidays are good to take a self-inventory. And where does your garden need upkeep? What plants didn't make it? Where do you need to replace? Some creative ideas for next year. What relationships need repair? What thoughts and actions need composting? What part of your consciousness needs to be tilled and fertilized? Wherever you are today, you can begin to tend and plant and grow and harvest. Birthdays and holidays are great times to take a little inventory and clean up. This is my birthday month. So I spend a lot of time in the month of May thinking about all the good things in my life and being very appreciative and thinking about what do I want to plant for next year, the next year of my life. Sometimes it amazes me that I've had such a great life and I just get really, my heart opens and my eyes leak when I think about all the ways that my life is fulfilled. And my spiritual work is the key to that. It really is. Before I had a spiritual path in my life was not really something, it didn't provide an abundant harvest. I had lots of rocks in my garden and most of the things I planted died. And so it's just a different place and my heart is full. So looking back at our scripture reference today, in Jesus's parable, the Christ is the sower, right? Jesus said the sower went out. The sower is that inner Christ that speaks truth to us, and it's always sowing seed. It is always sowing seed of inspiration. It's just a matter of whether or not you are ready, to hear whatever that is. And in our parable, there were 4 different kinds of hearers. The first hearer represents a lack of understanding. There was no depth of consciousness. The ground was hard and packed down, and the seeds fell on the path, and the plant couldn't come. The seeds were devoured by birds. And the second hearer was able to hear the word and receive the seed, but only with a superficial consciousness. The ground was not prepared, but there was a little bit of soil. So the seed germinated and a plant sprang up, but it wasn't life sustaining and life enhancing. So that seed didn't make it. The third hearer had a consciousness that was like thorny ground, and the seed was consumed by all those thoughts of personality and all those weeds of ego that just smothered it out. And the fourth hearer came as the result of spiritual study and commitment. It was a receptive mind, right? And it was good soil, and it produced an abundant harvest. Now, the harvest was different. This is important point, just this one sentence. Don't miss this. Some of it was 100-fold, some 60-fold, and some 30-fold. What does that mean? Jesus is saying that we're all at different levels of consciousness, and we will produce according to our understanding and our application. If you want more harvest, then just continue to work these steps. Amend your soil, provide abundant water and inspiration and ample sunshine of higher consciousness, and just keep on working it. Keep on working through the process from the beginning to the end. In every season, start over. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't all make it. Just, tend to what does make it and then add to it. If Rick and I started out and thought that we had to do everything perfectly, we would have killed ourselves. It just wouldn't have worked. So we took it in bites. We do this much this year. We'll do this much more next year. We'll do this much more next year. And we add to it, always adding to it. And that's what life is all about. Clean up what doesn't work, plant more of what you want. Clean up what's not working, plant more of what you want. So let's turn within for a moment of reflection and meditation. Just find your comfortable place right where you are, and hopefully you are where you feel safe and you can just close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice for a moment. Find that breath within your body. I'm going to pause and just let us breathe. Just breathe. And sweet and divine spirit, we're so thrilled to have the ability to grow our spiritual life just like we grow our gardens and our plants. We pause right here to think about preparing our soil, preparing our consciousness. We become willing and receptive to be the observer of our lives, to take an honest look at the soil of our lives. Is it ready for planting new ideas? And if not, what kind of amendments do we need to make? We choose our seeds. Our seeds are divine ideas that come to us constantly. The inner Christ is always giving us new ideas to make our lives better. The inner Christ supports us in having a life of joy and abundance, happiness. We look to our sources of inspiration to water these new creative ideas that we have. And we stand in the abundance of sunshine, that higher thought of consciousness, and just allow it to radiate all over us. Feel those streams of higher consciousness flowing into you. Perhaps even right now you're getting messages that, oh, this won't work, or you're not good enough, or so-and-so is going to be in the way, or such and such is going to be in the way. We just want to compost those limiting ideas. We want to put those in the compost pile and allow them to break down into something that's usable in our life, not something that impedes and blocks our growth. And we pull out the weeds of our negative thinking. We use caution to make sure that we don't expose our garden to the prolific weeds of the public environment. And we become willing to prune our habits and behaviors so that we don't encroach or impede someone else's growth and the way that someone else shines in their spiritual garden. We know that we have trellises of support, this very spiritual community, the community of unity, new thought throughout the world, and those teachers that are showing up to share their inspiration with us. We pause to think about the harvest of our good. Think about all the ways that you serve others, that you bless others by sharing your time, your talent, and your treasure within your spiritual community to expand its reach, within your family, with your friends, and with our planet. And we commit to taking time to clean up our spiritual garden and always be willing to remove the plants that didn't make it or were not a good choice and plant again. Always being willing to embrace the idea of another year, another trip around the sun, another opportunity to allow God to be God in and through us. So let's just pause for a moment of gratitude and appreciation for our spiritual garden. Divine Spirit, our hearts are open, our mind is receptive. We have been awash with inspiration and greater consciousness. We begin to return to this time and space, recognizing that you are our master gardener. And we take those divine ideas and become willing to plant and grow our beautiful spiritual garden. And so it is. We all have been given wonderful God-given abilities, and we show up in different ways. Every one of us has a calling to serve in some way. If you've not found your calling, I'd be happy to talk with you about how you can do that. I believe that each of us is a divine and holy, perfect creation of God, and that there is so much that each and every one of us can do to bless each other and our planet. To sum up the advice of our master gardener, Jesus, we are to sow, grow, and go. I hope you enjoy planting your spiritual garden. Thank you for letting me be with you again today. God bless you. Love you. Pat, I think you're still muted.
Okay. So Reverend Robin, thank you for, I mean, I am so delighted to know this bit about you being a master gardener, and I'm delighted to hear about your wonderful, beautiful, lush garden growing in your very own backyard. But here's the other thing that I'm delighted about, that you extended your gardening expertise to Unity of Charlotte. We're grateful for you.
Thank you, Pat. I like to say that I garden a little and I'm a master of nothing.
Well, things sure flourish when they're in your, when they surround you. Thank you. We are at a time, and what a beautiful segue from that lovely talk to the offertory, where we get to nourish our own garden through our ability to share what it is that is ours to share, and to acknowledge that with excitement and gratitude. And we are always grateful for the way our congregation and our friends have nourished Unity of Charlotte, especially over this time of COVID and during the time that we are recruiting a new minister. So thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you for practicing prosperity in your own lives and welcoming those results. You can give here at today's offertory. You can mail a check to us, or you can go to unityofcharlotte.org and make your contribution on our safe and secure link. And so what I'd like you to do right now is take the things that are precious to you, that you share in life with those around you, and whatever gifts you have for us, and hold them close to your heart, and join with me in our prosperity blessing. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.